What's up, everybody? Welcome to this bonus podcast, Fantasy Football Today. It's Adam and Dave Richard here, and we've got Brandon Aiyuk agreeing to a 4-year, $120 million extension. Last year, Aiyuk was wide receiver 16 per game in full PPR. The year before that, he was wide receiver 25 per game in full PPR. Will he be a top 16 wide receiver in drafts this weekend now that he is signed? Let's bring in Dave here as we welcome you to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Okay, where was Brandon Aiyuk before this announcement, and will you be moving him?
Brandon Aiyuk was a late fourth-round pick because we were starting to get seriously nervous about him not being a part of the 49ers to begin the start of the season. But cooler heads prevailed. He got his contract. I would assume he'll be back at practice on Friday, and he's got a little bit more than a week to get ready for week 1 against the Jets.
Okay, and so, like I said, he was wide receiver 16 per game last year, and that was with an incredible season. Now, I will say this. There were 2 games that he left early with injuries. He played 53% of the snaps in week 2. He played 38% of the snaps in week 18. If you take those games out, he averaged more than 17 fantasy points per game in PPR, more than 14, almost 15 per game in half PPR. If you take out the 2 games he left early, I don't think week 18 was an injury, just he left it early. Brandon Aiyuk was basically like the number 6 receiver based on those points per game. He was incredible, but the thing that stands out is that 2 straight seasons, he's been on pace for 112 or 114 targets. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, look at what he did with those targets. It's essentially the same amount of targets 2 straight years, Dave. In 2022, he's a borderline number 2 wide receiver with 78 catches and 8 touchdowns. In 2023, he's almost a number 1 receiver per game with 82 catches and 8 touchdowns. So again, if you're not following, I know it's a lot of numbers. 2 straight years on pace. This is not his stats. This is 17-game pace. On pace for 8 touchdowns. On pace for right around 80 catches. But in 2022, he was on pace for 1,100 yards. In 2023, 1,439 yards. So, you know, if he stays at 115 targets per 17 games, Dave, I think there's some regression coming here. So, did you say where he is in the rankings?
I did not say that yet.
Okay, so will he be a top 20 wide receiver for you?
Yes.
Top 15.
I am actually working through it right now, and he is barely inside my top 15.
Aiyuk or Deebo Samuel?
Deebo Samuel.
In all formats?
Yes.
Aiyuk or George Pickens?
Aiyuk.
I'm just saying because we thought maybe
they could have been teammates and all that. Yep.
But I don't think it's so obvious whenever you're talking about a guy who. Do you think he'll break 115 targets?
Anything's possible between him as an ascending player with 2 teammates. As great as Deebo is and Kittle, they're older guys. And so it is possible that he could get to that number. But I don't think he's going to be anywhere near like where the elite wide receivers are. Those guys are getting like 150 targets a year.
Right.
I don't think he's getting 150. 115 makes a lot more sense. 120 wouldn't surprise me either. Listen, he's good. Why wouldn't the 49ers try and use him even more? And if they're going to be in more competitive games, then maybe they will. But that, to me, that's the biggest thing that holds me back. There were 12 games last year where he was playing with Deebo and Kittle. He actually averaged more PPR points per game in those games than he did on the season overall. And at no point can we find, other than maybe like cherry picking games here and there, he was averaging around 6.5 targets per game. So we want that target volume to go up. There's no guarantee that it will. That caps his ceiling. He doesn't get the rushing production that Deebo Samuel gets. All right. And Deebo could get the same amount of targets. That caps his ceiling.
Yeah.
Both their ceilings are kind of capped, but they're both really, really good. They can both average, as they did last year, more than 16 PPR points per game.
12.8 yards per target. That is the most.
Oh.
I'm going back now and looking. That is the highest for a minimum of 50 targets since Tyler Lockett in 2018 when he had 13.8 yards per target. And just to give you a reference, Tyler Lockett's been at 11 yards per target one other year and never more than 9.6. So just to keep in mind, if you don't think the targets are going up for Brandon Aiyuk, just there is some regression coming in the yardage without question. There's just no way he's getting 12.8 yards per target. Hopefully he gets more targets. Now, are you moving Deebo Samuel down? Are you moving George Kittle down?
I did not move Kittle down. I don't think I will, because I just don't love the tight ends that I have behind George Kittle. And Deebo's down a little bit for me, but still on the border of being a 2-3 pick. And Aiyuk is literally going to go right after that.
Can I just be bold here?
Yeah, hit me.
I will take George Pickens over Brandon Aiyuk.
Wow.
I will take Malik Nabers over Brandon Aiyuk.
I would in non-PPR.
DK Metcalf.
Oh, maybe in full PPR too. Yeah, maybe.
Which one? Pickens?
No, Nabers.
Nabers is more of a PPR guy to me. I think touchdowns would be hard. I don't know. I want you to listen to Dave. You can listen to me if you want. Dave.
Well, I'm still marinating on all this anyway. It's not like I've literally done, like, I did research on Aiyuk and Deebo from earlier in the offseason and now just re-ranking them. And just literally you saying Nabers or Aiyuk. Yeah, it's kind of hard to put him ahead of Nabers.
Aiyuk is great. And he is.
Yeah, but Nabers is expected to be great too. Maybe Aiyuk is the safer pick because we've seen him do it before. But last year was the big year for Brandon Aiyuk. And before last year, I mean, just over the course of a season, it wasn't as good without somebody being hurt.
In full PPR, he's going to have trouble hitting 90 catches, I think. All of this changes if he gets a big target boost. Just why would he? There's no reason why they should go away from Deebo or away from Kittle or away from McCaffrey. They've got a great team. So it's a target crunch. But let's see what everybody has to say about it tomorrow when we marinate. I just think that I'm expecting so much regression from Brandon Aiyuk, and I guess it just wouldn't shock me if he was more like wide receiver 22 or something. He was 25 per game in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Pickens,
but again, I think you have to bake in what he did last year as a huge part of what the expectations are. I don't think last year was a one and done type thing for Aiyuk. I don't think he's about to regress to 12 or 13 PPR points per game.
No. And what was he last year? Over 16?
Yeah.
No. But yeah, 15 would be a pretty big. If he was at 15, that'd be a pretty big drop.
Well, 16.2 overall, 17.1 with Deebo and Kittle, which is totally weird. Why would it be higher with those guys? Wouldn't it be higher without those guys? But it was what it was. And then in 2022, it was 13.4, 2021, 9.5. So maybe it does make sense if you think that he's not going to get the yardage that he got last year and the same target volume. I would pencil him in for the same target volume.
Right. That's the thing.
Because how do you give that guy only 5 targets? In week 1 against the Jets, when he didn't practice much, that I get. That's going to be a Deebo week. That could be a Kittle week, but it's not going to. I'd be surprised if Aiyuk went off. And also, he's more of a man beater anyway.
He's a terrific player.
He is a terrific player.
It's kind of, it's just, he's like Nico Collins. They both have these ridiculously efficient seasons, and they both have a lot of target competition. So that's the decision you have to make when you get into round 3.
And so which team is going to throw more?
Well, the Texans will throw more.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to throw more efficiently than the Niners, most likely. Although I will say those two teams, I think, were 1 and 2 in yards per attempt last year. The Dolphins were top 3 as well. Those were the top 3 teams. That's the thing. You know about the Niners, that those guys, they may not get a lot of targets. They're going to do a lot with it. But if you're a person who prefers target volume, then you just have to think about that with Brandon Aiyuk. Brock Purdy, thoughts?
Tempted to move him back into my top 12, but at 12.
Okay.
Over Tua, over Caleb Williams. I think I'm going to make that move. Not going to put him over, definitely not over Jordan Love, not over Dak, not over Jaden Daniels. And, there's still a huge domino to fall still. And this is a crucial key here, is that if there's no Trent Williams, the offense just isn't, it's running at 80%, not 100%. That's too steep. 82.6%. not 100%.
We have 373 people watching here. I'm not putting an actual poll up, but I'm just asking the chat because I want to see how if I'm totally way off base here.
You're trying to see something.
Well, ADP is going to say that I'm way off base, but I want to know Pickens or Aiyuk. Who does the chat like? So I asked that Aiyuk or Pickens, and honestly, the first 4 answers are all Pickens.
Interesting.
No, sorry, 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. Somebody wants to know Aiyuk or T. Higgins.
I'm not big on T. Higgins. I will take Aiyuk.
Okay, we've got now 4 Pickens, 3 Aiyuk. All right. So
I'm surprised if it's close. Listen,
5 Pickens.
Pickens isn't. He was efficient at the end of the year with Mason Rudolph. I don't know if he'll find that efficiency again at all in 2024. Pickens.
I'm going to put a poll up, and we'll answer. We'll see what the results are tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today. Thanks everybody for watching this bonus podcast. We'll talk to you later.